at times across Scotland, but they should be fairly light. They should tend to zip through, one or two of them maybe in Northern Ireland, but most of the day certainly dry, and across the south dry and fine. In the sunshine, 23, 24, most places in the high teens or the low 20s. Fairly cooler though with the breeze in northern Scotland, which is still there on Sunday and still providing a few showers for the Highlands, the Northern Isles and the Western Isles in particular. Some may get blown into the northeast, but again,
you really could become the next giveaway winner with your chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Listen to what some of our previous winners have to say about winning big with us.
Hi, my name's Victoria. I won the Spring Great British giveaway. So the day we got the money in our bank account, everything just felt just a lot nicer. We went out for dinner, just enter. And you never expect to win, but I did.
Get your entry in now. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, comrades, and welcome to Friday Night Live with me, Ben Leo. We're in Keir Starmer's socialist surveillance utopia now, so any anti-establishment rhetoric will be swiftly reported to the authorities. Gone are the days when the Prime Minister thought this.
Live in a democracy, and if free speech is to be protected, there has to be a high threshold. People have the right to be offensive.
Elsewhere, Tory leadership hopefuls clearly have their finger on the pulse of the country.
What about all those international students? They came in after the pandemic. Are we saying that they should not have come into the country? So
brought their families there, didn't they, on your watch?
The system, no, actually, no.
Nigel Farage, of course, is now banned from the Conservative Party. So what does he think of that?
Boring. Boring.
And the Premier League kicks off tonight. Multi-millionaire footballers will signal their support for an organisation that wants to defund the police and bring down capitalism by getting on their knees. And North Korea is open to holidaymakers. Their tourist board, I suspect, has been busy rewriting marketing material in recent weeks in a frantic effort to distance itself from the UK. Getting stuck into all those topics tonight are my Friday A-team, author and journalist Emma Wolfe, former BBC radio and TV presenter Alex Dyke and political commentator Judita De Silva. I'll assess Labour's first 6 weeks in power next, but before that, your news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Ben, thank you very much and good evening. The top stories this hour. Irish police are investigating a potential terrorist link to an attack on an army chaplain at a barracks in Galway who was stabbed multiple times. He was taken to hospital with serious injuries, which are not thought to be life-threatening. A teenage boy was arrested by armed police during the incident last night, and the victim has been named as Chaplain Paul Murphy, who's released a statement thanking his friends for their support and assuring everyone that he'll be OK. In other news, victims of the infected blood scandal can receive support scheme payments for life under changes to a multi-billion-pound compensation plan. Meanwhile, those who were subjected to unethical research will get up to £15,000 extra. That's after the government accepted the majority of recommendations from an independent review into planned compensation for victims. More than 30,000 people who received NHS treatment between the 1970s and early 1990s were infected with contaminated blood. Senior Tories have criticised the Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer over pay offers to train drivers and junior doctors, with James Cleverly claiming the government has been played by its union paymasters. Train drivers on LNER are to stage a series of strikes, claiming a breakdown in industrial relations and breaking of agreements. Hundreds of members of ASLEF will walk out every Saturday between the end of this month for a total of 22 days. The dispute is separate from their long-running row over pay, which is set to be resolved after a new offer this week from the government. 2 men have received the longest prison sentences yet in relation to rioting that erupted in parts of England and Northern Ireland after the Southport stabbings. 48-year-old David Wilkinson, who was jailed for 6 years, and John Honey were part of a baying mob who attacked a car containing 3 Romanian men in Hull on August 3rd. 25-year-old Honey also looted shops and received a sentence of 4 years and 8 months. More than 1,000 people have been arrested so far over the disorder, with around 480 charged and at least 99 sentences handed down as the cases continue to be brought to the courts. And the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have spoken to school children in Spanish as their 4-day tour of Colombia continues. Harry and Meghan took part in an art session and planted trees during a visit to a school in the capital, Bogotá. Their arrival was celebrated with performances from students who wore traditional Colombian dress and performed cumbia songs with live percussion. Well, earlier, Prince Harry appeared to subtly weigh in on the recent riots in the UK, which were partly sparked by online misinformation. He said what happens online within a matter of minutes transfers to the streets, and people are acting on information that isn't true. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Tatiana, and good evening to you at home. I thought I'd start tonight with the latest from our new Labour government, 6 weeks into their term. What's going on in bonkers Britain today? Well, our Foreign Secretary David Lammy has been deployed to the Middle East to try and end the decades-long conflict between Palestine and Israel. Do you remember this classic from 2019 when Lammy compared Tory Eurosceptics to Nazis?
By implication, you're comparing the ERG to the Nazi Party, or at least to the South African racists. Now, whatever you think about the ERG, that was an unacceptable comparison, wasn't it?
Andrew, I would say that that wasn't strong enough.
OK, well, let's hope his diplomacy skills have improved somewhat since then. Meanwhile, Labour's track record for the truth keeps being tested.
Last year, the Prime Minister was apparently drawing up plans to remove the winter fuel allowance from pensioners. So will he now rule out taking pensioners' winter fuel payments off them to help fund his £46 billion black hole?
Keir Starmer speaking in May there. Change of tune today, though. Chancellor Rachel Reeves announced she was scrapping the winter fuel allowance for pensioners this week, a scheme she herself knows all too well after tweeting a few years back that she'd, quote, never forget a pensioner she met who had purple fingers because she couldn't afford to pay the heating bill. Very good. We might be close to World War III, but not to worry. Remember this pledge from our dear leader in the election?
And what about defence? That's also in the question. Where are you going to find the money for that if you don't increase streams of taxation?
Defence has to be the first priority of any government, defending your country, and therefore we will always make the money available for defence.
A first priority of any government. Actually, hold that thought, because the Telegraph reports that Labour will in fact cut hundreds of millions from the budget for modernising our armed forces. Rachel Reeves has told government departments they need to make £5.5 billion worth of savings this year to fill that £22 billion black hole that took everyone by surprise. Of course it did. Those junior doctors and train drivers, of course, have to be paid somehow. Meanwhile, Lincoln man Wayne O'Rourke, 40, accused of posting racist and so-called anti-establishment rhetoric online during the riots, has tonight been banged up for 3 years. That's right, anti-establishment rhetoric. 3 years in the slammer, so that got me thinking, whatever happened to this guy?
The threshold for prosecution has to be high. We live in a democracy, and if free speech is to be protected, there has to be a high threshold. People have the right to be offensive. I think if there are a lot of prosecutions, it'll have a chilling effect on free speech.
And there we go. Keir Starmer speaking in 2012 as head of the CPS. That holiday to North Korea looks ever more appealing by the day, I must admit. And finally, this COVID-era classic has been doing the rounds again online.
That man is not allowed in my pub. Get out of my pub. Go on. Get out of my pub.
At this rate, I wonder how long before the PM is barred from even more great British boozers. We'll see. I'm joined tonight by author and journalist Emma Wolfe, former BBC radio DJ and TV presenter Alex Dyke, and political commentator Judita De Silva. Emma Wolfe, let me start with you. Am I going to prison for my anti-establishment rhetoric tonight?
Honestly, Ben, it's funny and it is hilarious to see some of those clips, but it's actually really, really sad.
It's quite chilling, isn't it?
It's chilling and it's sad what has happened to our country, really in the space of, I would say, the past 4 weeks. People, children being banged up, a lady in her 50s who is a carer who tweeted the wrong thing, a man who had anti-establishment rhetoric. I know people who are frightened to like things on Twitter or on X. People are genuinely wanting to leave this country, and you know what? I don't know where this is going to end, but I mean, we're in a really bad situation right now.
Yeah, that guy, Wayne O'Rourke, tonight bangs up for 3 years.
3 years.
He did plead guilty to inciting racial hatred. He did some tweets which were, you know, by anyone's accounts, despicable. But the point is, do we want to live in a society, Alex, where we're banged up for things we say online, stupid things on Twitter or on Facebook?
I think there are some things that are particularly nasty and cruel and vicious, and I think that you can't just tar them all with the same brush. I tried to ban a record on my radio show once because I didn't believe in it, and on Twitter...
Which was it?
It was the Pogues' Christmas song.
You tried to ban it?
I tried to ban it.
Why? Because of the F word?
Yeah, because of that, and because I didn't want my granddaughter singing it on the back seat of the car after school pickup, you know, and obviously they're singing about the woman being a slut and a whore and all that, and I didn't think that was very nice, so I thought I would ban it from my show.
But I'm not sure we're allowed to say those words tonight. Maybe we are. I don't think we are, to be honest. Apologies if you're offended by that.
Well, yes, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend anyone, but they are in that song that's played on the radio every Christmas.
Context is key, yeah.
So, but my point is that people on Twitter, some people wanted me beheaded by ISIS for saying that. Now, I didn't throw my toys out of the pram. I knew they weren't serious. But what's happening now is very scary because it doesn't matter who's in power. You either support them or you don't, and politics and media mixed up can make things sound a bit crazy sometimes. But I think these are very scary times we're living through. Keir Starmer's been in power for 43 days, and look what's happening.
Yeah, Judita, what's your take on Labour's first 6 weeks?
I commend them for basically doing things that
Everyone has pontificated about what would be the solution to social media is a toxic place. Young people are exposed to toxic things, mental health issues. Somebody finally has to draw a hard line, and unfortunately, they have to be the bad guys in this, and that they're going to take a battering for it, and it's par for the course. But at the same time, when people say that free speech is under attack, I'm always curious about what exactly you use your free speech for, because if your free speech quickly turns into hate speech, that is an exploitation of a liberty. If you go on social media and say racist things, why is that what you want to use free speech for? You can we have differing opinions on lots of things. Express your point of view, but when does your point of view feel the necessity to be insulting or abusive to another person? That is a problem.
We already have laws about hate crime, right? We know about racism. You can't just spew racist hatred.
Yeah, this is tackling the issue of things like social media, because people operate in echo chambers, in silos, thinking that if I'm behind my keyboard on my phone, I can say the most vile things. Yeah, but hey, it's free speech. I'm not harming anyone. It does cause harm.
Sorry, with respect, people still do. I get called the most hateful things. I get, I'm going to push you and your young child off a motorway bridge. I don't report that stuff. No one goes after people who are actually being threatening and actually being abusive. What we're seeing with Starmer right now is like thought crime police, social media. Oh, you like this, you incited this, when you just simply expressed.
I don't think anyone's been charged for liking comments.
When did we lose the ability in this country to disagree with people, to disagree and to say
the manner in which you do so can be productive and be expressive of your position without being abusive to another person? You have chosen not to absorb that kind of abuse, a lot of which I get, which is vile and racist.
Don't go after people who are raping people in the streets and people who are actually, really
have the crime. Do you have statistics to say that those rapes have been reported and the police did nothing?
Oh yeah.
Well, rape is.
We know because that's an issue. That is the issue that
I think what's happening here.
Hold them accountable when they do not act on things that have been reported.
We've got a picture actually of this guy Wayne O'Rourke, who was banged up for 3 years tonight. Well, Alex, you go ahead whilst we show this picture. There.
I think what the establishment, what the government are worried about is things are getting so frantic out on our streets that tweets can light the blue touch paper to start more riots, and then we're out of control. I think if we're not careful on our streets, we could be in a mini civil war soon.
OK, so what happened then? Because we played that clip from Keir Starmer in 2012. He was head of the Crown Prosecution Service. He said the threshold for prosecution for, whatever he said, hate speech, however he described it, was very, very high, because we've got to be very careful of free speech. And Judita, I agree with you.
Said we should be able to be offensive.
Yeah, exactly. Some of the stuff online I see, I get, you get, everyone gets, is horrific. It's terrible. But I will die for the right of people to say it, believe it or not. I don't care what it is.
See, that's where I fundamentally differ, because, like I said, which is an example of what we have here, you can completely disagree with me. You can vehemently disagree with me. When you've crossed the boundary of now becoming abusive, that is a problem.
But who decides what's abusive?
I don't know. The victim does. Your convenience stops when the next person's inconvenience begins. That's the nature of a communicative society.
I can sit here tonight, Judita, and say, your interaction with me has left me offended. I'm very upset. I feel very threatened by what you're saying. I'm going to report you to the police. And are you saying that because I feel sad about it, you're going to get back up as well?
That's how it works. If you genuinely feel that, you could report me. And then once I present my defence, then people can judge it on the merits of both sides of the argument.
I agree with a lot of what you say, but the thing is, this is what is happening now in the workplace, where you and I have a little bit of a disagreement, and then I go and take a grievance out on you, and you're suspended. And
no, but that's what I agree with you, that the degree to which recourse is taken is what has to be regulated. You have a right to what you feel. You have the autonomy of that and to express that you have a grievance with me. I have a right to defend myself and vehemently do so. And both sides need to be looked at objectively and judged on their merits. That's it. What I do disagree with in that is that sometimes, as soon as you're accused, you're assumed guilty and then action is taken. That isn't fair.
So can I just clarify what you said? So you are saying that if the victim feels upset or offended by some hurty words, that's the threshold. That's all we need.
No, that's not the threshold. They have a right to express that I am displeased with that. And the process of finding recourse is what has to be regulated. Saying that people cannot feel is a problem. So if somebody says something...
People are being put in prison right now. People are being put in prison for 3 years.
For what? And what was 3 years for?
Absolutely ludicrous.
You can be angry that they're...
to agree and disagree, have a massive row, You know, write back and forth to each other. Use social media if you want to. Stay away
But my
from it
response
if
to
you
that
don't
is that I do not want to have a massive row about someone saying violently racist stuff on social media. I feel action should be taken. With one breath, you cannot say that I condemn racism when somebody takes extreme acts of exercising free speech with the singular purpose of targeting a racial group. That's OK.
The one thing I agreed with you on is that there is so much horrible stuff on social media, but that is about child pornography. That is about eating disorders, you know, inciting people to
racism is okay.
mental health and encouraging people to commit suicide. There's horrible stuff on social media. None of this is about that. This is about policing people's thoughts and their opinions.
The case that we're discussing is about a man that typed vile racist things on social media plus anti-establishment.
Let me read you what he typed, and let me viewers at home make your own conclusions as well. He said, "People of Southport, wear the FLU, get out on the street." That post had 1.7 million views, the court was told. Other posts showed a picture of the County Road Mosque in Liverpool and a picture of a burning car in Sunderland, accompanied by a post which read, "Sunderland, go on, lads." Another post read, "Starmer has basically said it's us against them, hold the line." Other posts read, "Numbers are important," and, quote, "give them hell, lads." And his profile was accompanied by a picture of a bulldog wearing a Union Jack.
But you're still allowed to tweet that
Yeah,
stuff.
but that is awful. And the problem, look, the book hasn't been written on the internet, right? It's all new, and there are people putting YouTube videos up encouraging children to swallow coins in a dare. And I have a friend whose daughter did that and ended up in hospital because there's all these idiots out there putting stuff on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, YouTube, and some people are silly enough to follow it.
OK. All right. Alex, Juditha, Emma, thank you. Great start. Coming up in the rest of the show, former Home Secretary Priti Patel is in the mix for the Tory leadership crown, but has she just sunk her own ship? And as all 6 Tory leadership candidates dismiss Nigel Farage, he's banned from the party, of course, along with the rest of the Reform MPs. Can the Tories afford to disregard him, or will this just win him and Reform UK a lot more support? Back in a tick.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
King Charles has launched his own aftershave, costing, wait for it, an eye-watering 135 quid for a 100 millilitre bottle, promising buyers that they can smell just like the gardens of his Highgrove country pile. Now, this is something that Meghan Markle would do, surely not the King. Is this a case of King Charles selling out, watering down the brand, just like Meghan? Well, join me now to discuss this is the royal broadcaster, Helena Chard. Helena, welcome to the show.
Martin,
often on this
hi.
show, we've had a pop at Meghan Markle, the Sussexers, for selling out, for flogging strawberry jam, and now the King is flogging Pong. Is this really the right royal thing to do?
Do you know what? So the joy of luxury Highgrove splash, you know, at the end of the day, Highgrove is such a special place, and the Highgrove shop sells amazing things on there. And as we know, the profit actually goes towards charity. So it's the King's Foundation, which was formed in 1986. Profits go towards educational and training, and it's all to do with this sort of sustainable world. But not to forget as well the charitable aspect and the whole ethos of the King's Foundation, and that's so important. This is not just something that's going up on the website and just being sold purely to go into someone's pocket. So I think, you know, all in all, I think everyone should have a look at the Highgrove website and see what's on for sale. I mean, there are lots of really lovely, I think, pretty fairly priced products. And even more so, go and see the gardens. You know, as we know, King Charles is a keen environmentalist, and the gardens are fabulous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true.
You're not wrong. No one
will be cancelled. Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Friday Night Live with me, Ben Leo. Now, the Conservative Party have plenty of time to get themselves together ahead of the next election, but who will be leading them into battle? Former Home Secretary Priti Patel is in the mix, of course, but arguably didn't do her chances any good after this interaction with our man, Christopher Hope.
Net migration has gone about 2 million over 4 years. You know, I don't want to say that was too much. I mean, many would say it is too much.
But you can put context to it. And I think it's too lazy, if I may say so. I think it's really quite sloppy just to go around, you know, the merry-go-round on this, in the sense that students, we shut down. Don't forget, during the pandemic, our borders were effectively closed. There was no travel. What about all those international students? They came in after the pandemic. Are we saying that they should not have come into the country? So
Brought their families there, didn't they, on your watch?
So the system, no, actually, no.
No?
You have to, again, which students brought their families? Look at the categories and the criteria. I do think, you know, put the facts and the context around this. And one final point to make, points-based system, the brightest and the best. I was the one that put a skills criteria to it. You don't come to our country through the points-based system unless you're sponsored, unless you're paying thousands of pounds for your visa, the immigration health surcharge, and you're sponsored. These are people that come here and work and contribute to our country and our tax base.
Well, has Priti blown her chances? Author and journalist Emma Wolfe, former BBC radio DJ and TV presenter Alex Dyke, and political commentator Judita De Silva weigh in, and they're back with me now. Emma Wolfe, has Priti blown it?
Well, I think all politicians over the past few years need to apologise for what's happened to our country and with immigration specifically.
What went wrong?
What went wrong? Well, what could have been and what used to be a fair and generous system where we welcomed people, we employed lots of people, they brought valuable skills to this country, especially to the NHS, to care work, teaching, all of that. I think it's become a horrible, divisive, you know, out-of-control system. And look at where the country is now. The immigration, the overwhelming issue of our time is just is tearing the country apart.
You'll get banged up for that.
I'm sure I will.
Careful, that anti-establishment, anti-immigrant rhetoric.
Cancelled and banged up at the same time.
Alex Dyke, what do you make of the Tory leadership race? There was a Con Home, I think it was Con Home poll the other day where she, surprisingly, was bottom of the pile on about 3%. Do you think this interview with our man Chopper has done her chances any good?
I don't think it's done any good at all. In fact, I think it's done her quite a lot of harm. I think MPs would be a lot more endearing to people if they said, look, I got it wrong. I messed it up. I got this right, I got that right, and I was pretty on the nail there. I messed this up. Don't worry, I'm going to work at it. I think that would make them more endearing to the voter. It's a poisoned chalice. Doing that gig. I don't think she's done herself any favours at all, particularly when you think where we are now. A 69-year-old granddad goes out with a kosh into the streets to fight and ends up in prison. What does that tell you? What does it tell you about society today? What does it say about society when you go to A&E and there's a message there, a sign on the door saying, please don't harm any of our staff, they're here to try you. You know, society's been getting worse and worse and worse.
But what's that? People would say, what's that got to do with migrants? With immigration?
I'm not saying it's all got to do... I'm just saying our standards have slipped. I'm not saying it's all to do with migrants.
Talking about Priti not admitting that they got it wrong and,
government's getting it wrong and the way our standards are slipping.
Got it.
That's what I meant.
Judita, on immigration, why don't Tory MPs get it? They just don't get it. I've been saying for maybe, I don't know, a year, 2 years now, immigration is the #1 issue for right-leaning voters, right-of-centre voters. They want the illegal boats stopped and they want legal migration down to what it was before Blair took hold, which was, well, some years in the negative and some years tens of thousands. We're now, well, the year ending 2022 was 700,000. Why don't politicians understand what voters want, especially the Conservatives?
I actually strongly agree with what my colleague said just now. I think there's a whole perception of to be a leader, to have the presentation of a leader, you have to be unwavering, you have to be seen to be strong, and you have to be seen to be infallible. And that's just not what works anymore, particularly what we're seeing with the environment of the way, the culture of the way people talk, where they hold their opinions. They want to see a level of humanity and also taking accountability for what you've done wrong. If she'd sat in that room and said, yes, mistakes were made, that should we, if I were leader, if we were in power, this is how we would address those mistakes. But successes were also made because, again, when you think about conversations about the Commonwealth, throughout history, Britain has always depended on leaning onto the goodwill of the Commonwealth to help when things are bad. That leans into what she was talking about, visas for students and health and care workers, because post-pandemic, post-Brexit, there was work that needed a workforce that wasn't being provided within the country, and they leaned on that, and that's why those numbers of immigration, legal migration, went up.
Yeah, well,
migration can be done to the benefits of the country.
Prissy was saying, what about all the student visas we gave? You know, it's great we've got all these students coming to the UK. Who disagree with that? And I've seen lots of commentaries today and emails from viewers and so on. Well, yeah, people don't want that. We don't want hundreds of thousands of students coming here and their families coming, and Aunt Janice from Islamabad.
But then she made the point of which students, because what you find is that mature students do have dependents that do come with them. Younger students, undergrad age, don't actually have that. But then, at the same time, look at what's happening with universities. I remember when I was in university, a lot of my friends to this day were international students. Their fees are 3 or 4 times more. If you're looking at medical students, it could be 5 times more. That's cold, hard cash in the coffers of universities. When you scale back on that, you're crippling the universities that depend on that income to be the institutions they are.
Yeah, well, it's cash for the universities at the detriment of the cohesion of our society, I would argue. But anyway, sticking with the Tories, Nigel Farage will be banned from the Conservative Party. No matter who replaces Rishi Sunak as leader, all 6 candidates to replace Sunak, so Priti Patel, James Cleverly, Tom Tugendhat, Mel Stride, Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick, have said Mr Farage would not be welcome in the party as a member, nor sit on Tory benches as an MP. And I think we've got this clip. It's a far cry from this moment at Tory conference when Prissy and Nigel were sharing a boogie together. Oh, those were the better days, weren't they, Emma? When they were getting along.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely hilarious. Do you think that Nigel Farage is going to give a flying, an absolute? Do you think he's going to give a monkeys about being cancelled by all the leaders?
Boring. Boring.
He's really not going to be cut up about this. Why on earth, when Reform are riding high, when Nigel Farage is riding high, why on earth would he want to join a sinking ship?
New polling, can't remember where it was, I should probably have found it, but new polling in the last day or two shows Reform up about 3 or 4 points to the detriment of Labour, actually, in fact. So, making inroads, Alex.
Yeah, Mel Stride says that Nigel Farage would destroy the Conservatives. I would argue that he might want to reshape the Conservatives.
Steal all their voters.
Yeah, I think Nigel's problem is when any radio DJ, TV presenter, footballer becomes too big for the team, the station, the company, you're kind of on a hiding to nothing because you're seen as a threat. If Nigel was in the Conservatives, then there would be a lot of worried Conservatives thinking quite strongly, I think, about their future. I think he's much better off where he is.
Judita, you're a big Nigel fan, I suspect? No?
Oh, he's an interesting character, I must say. I give him credit for that. But I think it's valid, the point that the Conservatives have made, because when you just look at it objectively, what you've done is fracture the party, and you've planted your flag as saying the party as it is not good enough for me. I'm going to make something else by siphoning off parts of your party. That is an antagonistic position to take, because what you would think is that if you wanted to be a leader constructively, you would almost create a faction within the party serving the purpose of the betterment of the party. So when he split off from them, he said definitively that the Conservatives are not good enough. So you've made yourself an enemy of that party. So it's understandable they wouldn't want you back because you've said they're not good enough.
Emma,
where you stand.
What are you giggling at?
I'm so sorry, but he hasn't siphoned off their voters. He's listened. He's done what the Conservatives have failed to do for the past 5 years. He's listened to what voters want, and he's responding to that. And Reform comes out of, oh, this is what the British people care about. Let's give them what they want. And by doing that, they got 4.1 million votes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying that in doing so, you've planted your flag. It's against the Conservative Party, so it's not a surprise that they will say there's no space for you here anymore. You don't want to be here anymore, and you worked counterproductively to being here.
No one wants to vote for the Conservatives anymore. It's as simple as that.
I mean, I have no problem with that personally, but I'm just saying that I understand where they come from, that you function in the anti-position to where we stand, so there is no place for you anymore.
They feel threatened by reform, of course they do.
Alex, what's your thoughts on Nigel Farage? You're a Hampshire man, aren't you?
I am a Hampshire man.
Are there any fans of Mr Farage down there?
Yes, there are. I think that he's a big personality, like Trump. And they make interesting politicians, and fair-weather voters often gravitate towards an interesting personality and someone who says it the way it is, even if it's not the way it is and it's the way they see it. I think he's upset the Tories so much, they just want to say this because they know he doesn't give a damn anyway.
Yeah, I don't think he cares about the Conservative Party anymore. In fact, he said after the election, my focus now is on Labour. Labour have, keep your eyes out because we're coming. We're coming for those red wall seats. We're coming for the seats that we narrowly failed to win to Labour. So I think it's actually Labour he cares about, not the Conservative
Party. We don't give new parties enough time to grow in British politics.
Well, they're stuffed really with first past the post. I mean, UKIP got something, 4 or 5 million votes in 2015 and a couple of seats. I mean, until we have massive reform of the voting system, proportional representation akin to, say, Europe, I guess.
It seems unfair that they're not allowed to play the long game, no matter what party they are.
Yeah. All right, we'll finish there. Before we do, I'm just going to play this boring clip of Nigel one more time because I love it so much.
Boring. Boring.
There we go, nice little treat for you on a Friday night. Now, the Premier League kicks off tonight, but away from the football, teams have pledged to keep taking the knee in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. Remember them? All these multi-millionaire sportsmen taking the knee, or taking the pee, maybe. This is Friday Night Live with Ben Leo. Back in a tick.
Boring. Boring.
Evening, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The weekend is upon us, and for most of us, it's going to be a fine weekend. Dry for the vast majority, with some sunny spells and temperatures about the average for the middle of August. One weather fronts that cleared away last night, still lingering close across northern France, and another one is approaching the northwest. So here, yes, it isn't going to be sunny all weekend. There will be certainly overnight plenty of showers and a fairly gusty wind, actually, across the far north of Scotland. Further south, most places with clear skies, lighter winds. That will allow it to turn quite a bit cooler, quite a bit more comfortable compared to recent warm and humid nights. It does make for a fresh start, but generally a sunny start in the south. There'll be some sunshine across northeastern parts of Scotland, but further west and further north there will be quite a lot of cloud, a few showers moving through and a fairly gusty wind. So just be prepared for that if you're going into the mountains of Scotland tomorrow. Quite a significant wind chill. A coolish start too for Northern Ireland, some cloud, the odd shower possible over northwest England, but they shouldn't last too long for the majority across England and Wales. It's a fine, bright, sunny start, and many places will hang on to sunny spells throughout the day. Yes, some cloud will bubble up. It's not going to be one of those crystal clear blue sky days, but sunny spells throughout. Still a few scattered showers over the far north of England, at times across Scotland, but they should be fairly light. They should tend to zip through, one or two of them maybe in Northern Ireland, but most of the day certainly dry, and across the south dry and fine. In the sunshine, 23, 24, most places in the high teens or the low 20s. Feeling cooler though with the breeze in northern Scotland, which is still there on Sunday and still providing a few showers for the Highlands, the Northern Isles and the Western Isles in particular. Some may get blown into the northeast, but again, they shouldn't last too long. Most places further south, dry, fine and sunny. And again, in the sunny spells, temperatures getting into the low to mid-20s.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to Friday Night Live with me, Ben Leo. Now, the new Premier League season kicks off tonight, and I'm hoping Arsenal can finally maybe do the business against Moneybags Man City and win the title. But away from the football, teams have pledged to keep taking the knee in tribute to the Marxist Black Lives Matter organisation, which, aside from other things, wants to bring down capitalism and defund the police, of course. I'm joined again by author and journalist Emma Wolfe, former BBC radio DJ and presenter Alex Dyke, and political commentator Judita De Silva. Emma, are you into your football?
Yeah.
Actually, it doesn't matter. You can hate football for all you
Liverpool
care.
supporter.
You're a Liverpool supporter. You've got Ipswich tomorrow.
Yeah.
What do you make about this knee taking? Because BLM, at the time, right, of course, everyone's like, yes, of course, you know, Black Lives Matter, of course we're against racism and discrimination. But then it emerged, of course, that BLM really was a bit of a scam, didn't it?
I just think the virtue signalling is pointless and it has to stop. I think I want to keep politics out of sport and sport out of politics. I hate it when when the Prime Minister pretends that he's a fan of whatever, a supporter of whatever. I think that, absolutely footballers can do meaningful things. Look at Marcus Rashford. Look at his 2020 parliamentary petition. Look at his amazing campaigning on child food poverty and free school meals and all of that stuff. Someone like Marcus Rashford has done amazing work and is really powerful. But when you have this pointless taking the knee, apparently they've already planned, they're going to take the knee on 6 occasions over the next season. Just make it.
What does it do? Judita, what does it do, taking the knee? What does it...
What it does is it uses a global platform that has enough attention to get a primetime slot on news channels to remind people that racism isn't over. So
but we all agree on that.
Do you all agree on it? Because you just used the word pointless, and that fundamentally offends me, because at the end of the day, I appreciate them letting people know, because just look at what happened with Vinicius Jr. Look at what happened with Enzo Fernandez. It hasn't stopped.
But taking the knee is... That act of taking the knee
the act of taking the no makes everything stop for a moment, and people go, why are they doing that? Then remembering why they're doing that and brings it back to the forefront of the conversation. What they're saying is they haven't stamped racism out of football, and we are aware of that, because if you are going to get money and glory and victory from the work of black bodies, you have to appreciate that they wanted to validate the lives that inhabit those bodies.
Got it. Do you agree BLM is a bit of a scam, though? Because, I mean, in 2022, it was revealed only 30% of donations actually went to any BLM activities. Patrice Colors, who was the ex-CEO, she resigned under a cloud of mystery because she had a multi-million-dollar property portfolio all over the country. Properties worth tens of millions. The other execs, her partners and family members, were paid millions of dollars from donations in salaries. Do you agree?
I personally completely condemned that. I thought it was absolutely abhorrent, because you imbibed something that had such truth to it and such value to it, and the black community appreciated that there was this landmark watershed moment where people had a conversation we felt was overdue, co-opted it and did something deplorable. So that was unacceptable. But why we fight for BLM to still stand is that the ethos behind it, that the life of a black person has value, treats them as such, has to always stand, so it shouldn't die.
Just to say, I didn't say pointless. I don't think that fighting for that
No,
is
you said taking the knee is pointless.
I said pointless virtue signalling, these gestures that are pointless and virtue signalling.
Alex, have you ever taken the knee?
I haven't. At the time...
Would you like to do it now? No, don't.
No, at the time, I was all for it, but I think it was a moment in time. I don't want to compare it to the Ice Bucket Challenge. That would be disrespectful. But all of these things...
Well, that was a good cause. That was for motor neuron disease.
Yeah, I know, but then everybody started doing it, and the message of why people were doing it was lost. So all of these things have their moment. What we need in football stadiums are soccer marshals. If they hear any form of racism, they get on their radio and they stop the match. And they point out who the people are who are being racist, and then the other fans can deal with it.
I agree. Why hasn't that been put in place? That's why they keep taking the knee. If actions like that had been taken place, they would feel, players like Vinicius Jr. would feel like, OK, yeah, they've heard, they've answered, they're acting.
What's happened with Vinicius? I missed it. What happened?
Oh,
is he in Real Madrid now?
Yeah.
Yeah, what happened?
So they've jailed 3 of the football chanters that were hurling racist abuse at him, and it had been relentless for an entire season, to a point where he broke down in an interview saying that I just want to play football. And finally they took action, and 3 of them have been sentenced.
The Premier League could afford that, and it will get them great press. You have soccer marshals in the game, in the stadium. You don't necessarily know who they are, or maybe they could have high vis on. They're on their radios. They stop the match immediately. It's pointed out who the racist people are in the crowd, and the game doesn't start playing again until they are removed.
And you get your season ticket revoked.
Say it again, sorry.
And you get your season ticket revoked.
Yeah, it goes without saying. And as I said with these riots, it takes a few select racist, idiotic thugs to tarnish a whole swathe of people who are, say, concerned about immigration, who aren't racist. I don't think it's racist to be concerned about immigration, obviously, but you get a few idiots tarring everyone with the same brush.
I think Alex's suggestion is excellent, and I think it would be far more effective. And I also think that it would make them extremely, it would make the racist, horrible thugs, shouting that kind of abuse, which is totally unacceptable.
Yeah.
And then the rest of us would feel like we'd been heard, and they wouldn't feel the need to take the knee.
Make them, they would be extremely, extremely unpopular, and that's the way to do it. But I'm just saying, these gestures seem empty.
No, the gestures evoke a conversation like that, would have people in your position with your platform to make suggestions, and eventually, if you listen to all fans, you're white, I'm black, saying the same thing.
I'm saying that
if it's turned to action, then we wouldn't need to do this.
These gestures have become empty. They've just become part of the process, like wearing a rainbow bracelet, rather than actually treating LGBT people.
What about wearing a rainbow flag whilst taking the knee?
Or dancing over a rainbow crossing?
Look, I think it's pointless, but I get your point. We're talking about it on a primetime news slot, so I get your point, Judita. Right, coming up, would you go on holiday to the most secretive country on Earth? North Korea opens its doors to international tourists for the first time since before the pandemic, but who would want to go? And do you recognise this man? It's our dear leader, Kim Jong-un. I'm Ben Leo, back with you in a moment.
Yeah, if you're not arrested.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Sarah, welcome to the show. Obviously, you work for a tobacco company, so a little caveat there to slip in. Nevertheless, it's no surprise that the illegal market is growing so much. When you look at the cost of cigarettes in Britain, huge amounts of duty, and oftentimes, of course, criminality always finds its way into the system. Tell us more about your report.
Absolutely. I mean, up to 90% of a packet of cigarettes is tax. And in the last year, there's been 2 tax increases that have equated more to the last 3 years combined. So now, if you're a roll-your-own smoker, a 30-gram pouch of roll-your-own will cost £22.50, but you can buy a counterfeit pack of 50 grams for £3. So there's a massive disparity. A lot of illegal tobacco is imported, but we do also have a problem in the UK with illegal tobacco factories. So in the last month, there's been an illegal tobacco factory in Gateshead, in Bury, busted, producing roll-your-own tobacco. And on the 12th of July this month, West Midlands gang illegal tobacco factory, the gang was found guilty of producing illegal tobacco, and that was more than £5 million lost tax revenue to the government. And actually, all of those people found guilty got a suspended sentence.
And how does that work? They're literally importing container loads of raw tobacco and packaging it up in factories in Britain. And they're using what appears to be British packaging illegally?
Yeah, some of it is branded packaging, so some of it isn't the kind of unbranded packaging we'd see on cigarettes and roll-your-own now, but it's relatively simple to reproduce, especially RYO. Our own pack swap data now shows that about 50% of the roll-your-own market is illegal tobacco.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have said Stump.
you made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Friday Night Live with me, Ben Leo, and we're going to beam live now to Bogota. Tatiana Sanchez will be impressed. In Colombia, where the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have shrugged off security fears to embark on their so-called faux royal tour. Senior global reporter at The Mail Online, Nick Pisa, is live on the ground in South America. Nick, how's it going? Are they making headlines over there? Are they safe?
Safe, but bearing in mind, Ben, I should say that the security is absolutely phenomenal surrounding them. We are being given very limited advance warning of where they're going. So it's obviously playing a bit of catch up. And when you get there and you do see the security, it is phenomenal. They've got about 14, 15 armed police vehicles following them. There's also soldiers surrounding every venue that they're attending to with machine guns. There were drones up in the air this morning as well, police sniffer dogs. This morning they went to a part of Bogota known as Santa Fe, which is actually one of the worst rundown suburbs of the city, and they visited a school in the area, and they spent about an hour or so there before leaving. And the taxi driver that took us there this morning did actually question as if we were going to the right place, and told us that it was known as a notorious no-go zone. And also, when we left the school, the teachers were telling us, be careful of your belongings when you leave here, which brings into question, obviously, Harry and Meghan's security fears, because he fears coming to the UK, doesn't he?
Well, probably safer than London, no doubt. No, I jest. Nick, you are an exclusive machine. You bring the scoops and deliver them for the Man Online across the world. Can you give us a sneak peek for any exclusives you've got on this faux royal tour coming up?
I'd love to, Ben. I really would. But as I said, it's just the cards are being kept very close to the chest of the Sussexes. They aren't sharing anything. They have one pool reporter who's been assigned exclusive coverage to them from Harper's Bazaar, and they are getting advanced copy and advance warning of everything is going to happen. But then when you read the copy, it reads more like a fashion show report, because they're focusing very much so on the clothes and the jewellery that Meghan is wearing. And I think I totted up yesterday that she was wearing more than $20,000 worth of jewellery and dresses. Which, okay, fine, if you're entitled to it. But then we should bring into the same conversation, Ben, the fact that the average Colombian earns around about $1,200 a month, which is less than £1,000 a month, and 1 in 3 Colombians are on the poverty line. And you can really see some of that poverty when you're in downtown Bogota.
Okay. All right, Nick, you get all the best gigs. Enjoy, stay safe, and we'll catch up with you, probably tomorrow. Thank you, Nick Pisa, Senior Global Reporter at The Mail Online. OK, are we all ready for a commie holiday? Because notoriously authoritarian and isolated North Korea has announced it will be reopening its borders to foreign tourists for the first time since before the pandemic. With a ski slope and a holiday resort on the country's border with China, it seems Kim Jong-un's regime is wanting to attract holidaymakers. But would you go for a summer gander to North Korea? Panel, Emma Wolf, North Korea, what do you reckon?
Well, I think they're reopening in December. It does sound like a
you've looked into it?
I've looked into it, yeah. Apparently,
so the country's opening in December?
Yeah, reopening in December. It does sound like a really weird place. I've got a friend who's a travel journalist who went and kind of woke up on a train, and they'd taken his phone and they'd sealed it up in a package, and then they'd put the phone back, and I think they'd removed the SIM card. It does sound weird. But I have to say, right now, compared to this country, North Korea sounds like quite an appealing option.
Can we get the pictures up of those? OK, let me just make clear. These pictures, if we can get them, they are fake AI-generated pictures of Sir Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, morphed with Kim Jong-un, the North Korean leader. So these are fake. Let me just stress again before anyone gets their knickers in a twist. Very funny. Kim Jong-un for radio listeners. That's how the pictures are captioned. He's got the traditional Kim Jong haircut, buzzed at the sides, #1 to the top and a big floppy top. And there's Tony Blair. Tony Blair on the right, if you can see there, making an appearance as well, clapping on his dear leader, Kim Jong-un. Alex, would you go to North Korea for a holiday?
No
Would you trust
way.
the place?
No, I would not. No way. Why would anybody want to spend money going to somewhere which is worse than where they already are? I don't understand that. I think 100 Russian tourists went in recently. It cost them about $750. Nearly £600 to go in. They complained that the plane was old and smelling of mothballs. Why would anybody put themselves through that? I'd be worried sick all the time I was there. Not only about what you're eating, but where you're allowed to go. I wouldn't want my phone taken away. And you have to be escorted everywhere by these officials. So it just seems crazy to me.
But surely it would be a life experience, Juditha, don't you reckon?
From a curiosity perspective, definitely would be to see just a little lens into what it's like to be within North Korea. Because I remember the World Cups, like a few World Cups ago, when North Korea was playing, and one of the players burst into tears just being there. So it just gives you like a mirror into, I wonder what society is like there. But I don't think North Korea is actually going to truly swing its doors open in December. If anyone goes there, it's probably just going to be people from Russia and a few people from China. Because prior to this, thousands of international tourists were granted visas to come as opposed to millions. So tourism is not a booming industry in North Korea, so that's not going to change anytime soon.
I didn't know they had a ski slope there, Emma.
What kind of weather? I mean, is it really
No
cold? Is
idea.
it fake ski slope?
I've not got the first iota about North Korea.
How many times have we seen fantastic Olympic villages that aren't quite finished in time for the Olympics? And look, there's no Starbucks, there's no Disney.
Good.
Emma Wolf, good.
Absolutely. I'm honestly going to move there. I'm going to move there. You'll be rid of me and I'll be in North Korea. There we go.
Everyone's
I don't know if they're even allowed. Thank you.
Just quickly before we go to Patrick, what do you make of these memes, these AI-generated memes of Kim Jong-un?
Some people have too much time on social media. Do you want to live in a country run by Kim Jong-un?
Well, some would argue, there we are again.
You already do.
Some would argue that Labour's recent behaviour and this jailing of people for 3 years for posting hurty words online is reminiscent of North Korea. And on a serious point, Juditha.
I don't think it's quite North Korea. But again, some people have lived charmed lives and need to regulate their condemnation of something that isn't close to how bad it could be if they really were in North Korea.
These memes are very funny, though. I mean, I've seen many of them. I've giggled all night at them. That's one thing the right do very well. They can meme very well. The left don't seem to be able to do it. They just don't really have a sense of humour. But thank you so much, Emma, Alex, Juditha. Really appreciated your company this evening. It's been fun. Coming up next, it's Patrick Christie's. Patrick, what have you in store for our lovely viewers?
Yeah, look, fantastic show, Ben. Well done. I've got a big exclusive for you. So, a former Marine who infiltrated the Calais migrant camp and then travelled back to Britain in a small boat himself. I've got a little teaser for you that I think we can play now.
Occupied a tent deep inside, so tonight we met back up with the boys from Chad. We're just about to make our exit from the tent.
So what you're looking at there was, footage of the Calais migrant camp. He's got an astonishing story to tell. It's a TV exclusive, and I think it's a story that the Refugees Welcome Brigade would probably do quite well to listen to. Just a couple of other quick ones as well. Are the unions now in charge? I mean, they all want a pay rise, and why wouldn't they? Because they've all been getting it. And why are our police so obsessed with diversity? I have another couple of clips that I'll leave for you for 9 p.m, but I think they make good viewing as well. So it's all go tonight.
All right, Patrick, sounds like a cracking show. And congratulations, by the way, on your recent ratings. Absolutely smashing it, destroying the opposition. That's all from me. Hope you've had fun and it's been semi-informative. Up next, it's Patrick. But first, your weather with Alex Deakin. Take care. Have a good weekend.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The weekend is upon us, and for most of us, it's going to be a fine weekend. Dry for the vast majority, with some sunny spells and temperatures about the average for the middle of August. One weather fronts that cleared away last night, still lingering close across northern France, and another one is approaching the northwest. So here, yes, it isn't going to be sunny all weekend. There will be certainly overnight plenty of showers and a fairly gusty wind actually across the far north of Scotland. Further south, most places with clear skies, lighter winds, that will allow it to turn quite a bit cooler, quite a bit more comfortable compared to recent warm and humid nights. It does make for a fresh start, but generally a sunny start in the south. There'll be some sunshine across northeastern parts of Scotland, but further west and further north there will be quite a lot of cloud, a few showers moving through and a fairly gusty wind. So just be prepared for that if you're going into the mountains of Scotland tomorrow. Well, quite a significant wind chill. A coolish start too for Northern Ireland, some cloud, the odd shower possible over northwest England, but they shouldn't last too long for the majority across England and Wales. It's a fine, bright, sunny start, and many places will hang on to sunny spells throughout the day. Yes, some cloud will bubble up. It's not going to be one of those crystal clear blue sky days, but sunny spells throughout. Still a few scattered showers over the far north of England, at times across Scotland, but they should be fairly light. They should tend to zip through, one or two of them maybe in Northern Ireland, but most of the day certainly dry, and across the south dry and fine. In the sunshine, 23, 24, most places in the high teens or the low 20s. Fairly cooler though with the breeze in northern Scotland, which is still there on Sunday and still providing a few showers for the Highlands, the Northern Isles and the Western Isles in particular. Some may get blown into the northeast, but again they shouldn't last too long. Most places further south dry, fine and sunny, and again in the sunny spells temperatures getting into the low to mid-20s.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Celebrate a spectacular summer with your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash in our Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize of the year so far, and it's totally tax-free. What would you spend that on? Luxury holidays, a new car, or just put it away for a rainy day? Whatever you do with £30,000 in tax-free cash, make sure you don't miss out on a chance to make it yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on